Hello, everybody. We're live. Welcome back to the Late Show. This is your host, Young Brando, and we're live from Los Angeles to talk about watches. You guys know we have been uh, talking about the Only Watch 2023 uh, edition, the 10th edition, and how the serious allegations that were leveled against the Omni project, against the association, the foundation behind it, and against Omni Watch, by and large, forced its postponement for next year. I'll be back with some updates on that quite soon. Um, we also started looking through a November 6th auction at Christie's Geneva, one of the single collectors collection that they have very much specialized in more recently. As you guys know, last fall, they were the ones who sold Jean Todd's collection for a mind numbing sum. I want to just double check and make sure what that sum was before I just say anything at all, which was almost 32 million in Swiss francs. This time they are selling the collection of one Mohammed Zaman, who happens to be from Oman, and I'm sure you have already recognized that from the number of pieces that are very special and that are also emblazoned with the coat of arms of Oman that we in the collectors world simply know as the Hanjar. Of course, we took a look at this beautiful St. Dupont lighter, 60th anniversary limited run of 60 pieces in platinum that are also diamond sets and that do carry the same coat of arms that consists of a traditional Omani dagger over two cross swords and with a further crown up top. So we will continue to see this symbol, which of course has been made extremely popular by its appearance on sports models and luxury sports models by Rolex. Of course, a series of important and interesting Patek pieces as well. And in this auction, we have also seen a very special three-piece set that was made by the independent, but also, well, new independent, but also Phoenix brand Chapek company, which made, presumably as a tribute to the late Omani Sultan himself, a three-piece special edition of their Place Vendôme suspended tourbillon with a very intricately engraved bezel. That's an interesting touch. We have taken a look at those three watches. But again, whatever I did yesterday, we don't have to necessarily consider that a closed case. So if you would like me to bring up any of these watches, feel free to send in the lot number. I've just sent the link in the chat. And if you send the lot number in with a super chat, I'll be more than happy to go into horological and historical detail on any one of these pieces. As it happens, I actually received a very generous super sticker that was added as a comment on last night's live stream. As you can see, that Dupont lighter with the Khanjar was a fan favorite, but our very own Ali Raza, who is also a member of the channel and a great friend and a good supporter as well, he gave a $75 super thanks, which is basically a post live stream version of a super chat. My hours are more than a bit fluxered, but can I leave a tip and suggest you cover the new Sartori Billard tourbillon for 2024? It will be the SP08. So there we go. This was last night's live stream. Me repping Steel Buffalo Motors. Time is a human construct. Who left that precious comment about the Dupont lighter that was emblazoned with Khanjar, with the Omani coat of arms. And Ali Raza, who is asking me to cover the new Sartori Billard tourbillon. Now, you guys know I'm a big fan of this particular brand. I love the approach. I think this is the kind of concept that people have been craving for at any price point. You know, the modding community, especially for the Seikos, is a universe onto its own. And you know, at the other end of the spectrum, at quite a different price segment, obviously one of the reasons as to why many of the high rolling collectors prefer independent brands, tend towards collecting independent brands, is precisely the ability to get pieces that can be customized to the smallest detail. The ability to get a creation that is unique to your collection, that you would hardly see replicated elsewhere, has been an incredible boon for many of the high rolling collectors, as especially in the post-pandemic economy, the independent brands seem to have really came into their own. And as it happens, by the way, in this price segment, which is much more, of course, much more expensive compared to a Seiko mod, but also much more reasonable when it comes to an independent brand. It turns out that people are even willing to pay quite a reasonable amount of premium to get some of these watches that were technically made for someone else without having to wait. So Sartori Billard has for some years now quite been successful with both the SB04 and SB05. The 004, which also has a reduced case version, has a self-winding movement and sweep center seconds. The self-winding movement actually is quite a respectable movement. The Lajoux-Perret G100, which is a movement manufacturer that's owned by the Citizen Group, and a base movement that is used in similar offerings, for example, for Foulard Marie's three-hander watch, which also belongs to this category that can be seen as an affordable micro independent. I know it's a mouthful, but there's hardly an easier way to express that. These pieces for the SB04 and SB05 are right under 10,000 euros, with, of course, that price potentially going up for the kinds of materials and styles that you choose for your dial, for your hour track, in terms of the case material. Everything is quite customizable. And more recently, SB05, of course, being, again, a simple dress watch with a hand-wound movement, which again is a Lajoux-Perret caliber 7380. St. Peter, I love Honey Gold 199. Thank you so much. Me too. I was just at the Lange Boutique earlier tonight, actually, hence my delay in starting this show. And at the Chopard Boutique, where I ransacked through all the beautiful Ferdinand Berthoud and Chopard LUC pieces. So we were talking about how Sartori Billard builds every single piece from scratch, with everything practically being open to customization, from case material itself to the material of the dial, and to, really with every potential permutation of those combinations. The SB04 is under the 5K limits in euro, and SB05 is under 10. And their new sporty watch, which comes also with a bracelet option, SB07, which is also open to at least a few different levels of customization, and which to me, for better or worse, happens to be much more attractive than, say, the Louis Vuitton tambour, is available for 8,500. I actually thought that the new Louis Vuitton tambour piece with the design of the dial seems to be a knockoff from Sartori Billard, and we have seen bigger brands copying some of the smaller brands recently, like Longines, cribbing some of the dial design aesthetics of Naoya Hida. So it's not a coincidence at all. As far as I know, the new tourbillon piece that Sartori Billard is building for 2024 has not really been covered in detail by anyone other than Revolution. So I will have to depend on their coverage, but I'm happy to provide my opinion, my take on it. Of course, the movement is the most interesting part of it. Which is what you can see here. A very deft placement of a sapphire bridge there that seems to have allowed them to expose a significant part of the gear train. And this piece is going to be a jump hour piece with a tourbillon and remontoire, apparently. And of course, remontoire probably makes a lot of sense for this kind of power hungry piece that we will talk about a little further down. For SP08, apparently the founder of the company, Armand Billard, designed the dial featuring the jump hour and minutes display, and sought out the movement maker on Instagram. And this is going to be a double digital display. So you might say it's going to be the poor man's Zeitwerk, and what an interesting timing, right? Just as we have heard the announcement of a $500,000 version of the Zeitwerk in honeygold. And apparently he got a response from a watchmaker by the name Mathieu Cleguer, 33-year-old movement maker, who spent the last decade developing movements for acrivia, among others. The AK-06 was something made with his participation. I have said this before, but the jump hour pieces, by and large, since they revolve their design around usually a very small opening for the hour display and some measure of a scale or a sector for the minutes, open up the dial as a canvas for the particular artistry of the house, of the brand. And in this case, it's even more appropriate to have that double digital display for both the hours and minutes, because that frees up basically 85% of the dial for the customer, for the clients to devise, customize. And as you can see, this is the dial side of the mechanism. The watch displays the time with 3 separate discs, one for hours, one for the tens of the minutes, and one for the individual units. So one for hours and one for each digit of the minutes display, basically. So to ensure the simultaneous jump of all the 3 discs, and at least once every minute, obviously, without negatively affecting the amplitude and overall performance of the movement, they have taken, resorted, let's put it this way, to the use of a 60-second, meaning 1 minute remontoire, which acts as a secondary store of power. And that constant force basically allows the movement, or separately from the primary source of the movement, without depleting from it in terms of providing a jumping hour and jumping minutes display. So since this is customizable, I'm sure they might end up having versions with some sort of open work dial to display potentially the tourbillon cage. But I believe as it stands with the design, the tourbillon cage will be visible through the sapphire display back. This is the remontoire stop wheel, the remontoire spring, essentially a secondary source of power that acts as a constant force mechanism by allowing at least once per minute that jumping of the minutes on the digital display, as well as, of course, the simultaneous jumping of the minutes, the 2 discs of the minutes at that, and the hour every hour. And the tourbillon cage, as you see, will be displayed on the case back or through the exhibition case back. It is apparently going to be a flying tourbillon, which is principally harder to implement and aesthetically more pleasing, you might say, since you don't have a bridge that impedes your vision, your view of the tourbillon. And again, in addition to providing that constant force, the remontoir, since it is a 60-second or 1-minute remontoir, also operates as the switching device, which triggers the jump of the minute tens and the hour disc. The movement is a double barrel movement, since we are essentially working with two power intensive complications without opening up that can of worms to discuss yet again whether the tourbillon is a complication or not. You have essentially the digital display of jumping hours and minutes on the one hand, and the tourbillon, both of which are quite power hungry mechanisms. I tried to speak French earlier today, as you can imagine, so English is more foreign to me than ever right now, so I do apologize. The double barrel movement, I haven't necessarily been able to find exactly how much power reserve it provides. Not that that might be a deal breaker, but remember, it's been quite a revelation that the entire Zeitwerk line since last year now has a 72-hour power reserve, now has a full 3-day power reserve, which is something that Alan Gonzone is trying to have across the board. And overall, there's also, with the lack of hands, even with this complicated movement that includes a remontoir and a tourbillon cage, they have a case design that allows them to stay within a very wearable dimensions, 41 millimeters in diameter and a thickness of 11.5 millimeters. Very reasonable. And again, the final design of the movement, I think, is really delightful, that you can see here. The gear train is primarily held in place by a sapphire bridge. There's a finger bridge that holds in place the remontoir stop wheel, which can be nicely decorated. And the whole movement, as you can see, is designed to be viewed as extensively as possible, thanks to sapphire bridges, rather than, say, open working. There is a further sapphire bridge down there, which holds in place the locking anchor, the fourth wheel, and the pinion, which of course allows you a nice peek into the remontoir mechanism in action. And the movement overall, again, seems to have traditional elements of design, such as the finger bridges here, that are quite handsomely decorated. One that can be customized, of course. Here it has the Sartori Billard logo, but apparently it's open to customization. The sapphire bridges allow a neat solution for displaying the movements without having to resort to a much more artful work of skeletonization or open working, which can most certainly drive up the cost. And I believe also, considering some of the traditional elements here, the frosted finish on the bridges and the base plates is again very handsome, if also somewhat understated. Power hungry. Yes, you should do that. You should most certainly do that. Again, the movement has nice rubies as well, 5 of them of a nice size that have been set onto gold chaton, which again is something that harkens at least to higher scale, higher plane of production. And overall, this seems to be a design, again, that's very thoughtful, both from an aesthetic perspective, going back to the idea that a jump hour piece leaves a lot to imagination on the dial side, since look at this, for example. This is what will peek out from all these 3 discs, right? This is the part that will be covered. All the rest is basically, in a native bespoke watch, left to your own imagination, right? You can have a single dial from a semi-precious stone. You can have a guilloche center that is framed by kind of a crescent-like disc of a semi-precious stone. Or you can have, again, two pieces of a guilloche dial with different patterns. Really, the world is yours, as they say, or the world is your oyster, rather. And looking at these various design options from the previous models, like the SP05 and SP07 and SP04, you know that it is going to be a very interesting final creation. Again, some things are left to imagination, speaking of that level of customization, because ultimately we don't know what the power reserve would be, which is very important, right? It will be even more impressive if it gets closer to that 3-day power reserve, to that 72-hour power reserve. It will be more impressive if it has that sort of power reserve and remains still approachable within that 10,000 euro mark. I highly doubt that. I think this will be a watch that is more expensive, but once again, that price point is not really announced. If any of you have heard at least rumors, feel free to share, because I don't know how much it will cost. But I think this is very promising, considering how jump hour pieces seem to be getting a lot of attention recently, and how this piece not only has original aesthetics that allow for maximum customization, but also a movement designed from scratch for a beautiful display in detail, with mechanisms that both dazzle but that also serve a purpose, right? With the remontoir both taking care of the jumping, the switching, the flipping, whatever you want to say, of the 3 discs that give you the digital display of jumping hours and minutes, and of course addresses the power hunger of both that complication and the tourbillon as a regulating mechanism, which of course in its turn also serves as an aid to rate stability. So you get the constant force mechanism in the remontoire that addresses issues in the drop of amplitude, even as it takes charge as a switching device for the jump hour and minutes. You also have the flying tourbillon that is certainly a delight to watch through the sapphire crystal caseback. Itself aiding for rate stability. Once again, I think we will be in a much better place once we at least see a completed prototype, but considering how these pieces are bespoke and completely up into customization, that is very much going to be quite different from one example to another. Speaking of jump hour pieces, just earlier today, I believe, Alan Gonzune introduced a new timepiece, which is the analog wristwatch with digital display, once again with chiming functions, the Zeitwerk minute repeater. It is a limited edition in honey gold. So, as you know, as you can already guess, it is a piece that is going to be quite limited and very much out of the reach of most people. It will be a 30-piece limited edition, which I believe is somewhere in the range of 450,000 to 500,000 in US dollars. Of course, this isn't an outright new release. The Zeitwerk minute repeater existed in, I want to say, in platinum previously. And as you know, the material of the case matters quite a bit for the quality of sound, so to speak. And people can, everyone has a different descriptor, but oftentimes people attribute a certain loudness, if not necessarily clarity, to titanium. Platinum usually is described as having a clean, if also crisp sound, White gold is perhaps also quite loud among precious metals, and pink gold is usually associated with warmth. And as you guys know, and as I was witness to it, and ear witness to it earlier today, sapphire, in the way that Chopard LUC uses it in that monoblock construction that brings together the crystal and the gong, especially when it's blended with a full sapphire case, seems to have this unique clarity and level of sound that really shines through, and that's really unique to that brand. In this case, the choice of honey gold, in addition to its aesthetic charms and uniqueness to the brand, presumably has a similar clarity to platinum, but it's also warm sounding, just like pink gold, or at least this is how Tony De Haas, the brand's technical director, or rather the director of product development, describes it. The Zeitwerk is, of course, a big watch, 42.2 millimeters, and 14.1 millimeter thick. And this is a decimal repeater, much like the Voutilainen decimal repeater we were talking about just last night. So say for 1052, you would hear 10 low-pitched gong strikes and then 5 high-pitched strikes for the 50 minutes, and then 2 additional high-pitched strike for the 2 additional minutes after the last 10-minute interval. And as you have probably guessed from this close-up shot of the pusher, in a very Lange-like fashion, you have a pusher to engage the chiming functions of the watch, to engage the minute repeater, rather than traditional slide. And as I mentioned, previously, since this is a power-hungry mechanism, and doubly so, the Zeitwerk minute repeater also is equipped with a constant force escapement, and there's a total of 36 hours of power reserve when the watch is fully wound. And if you let the longest chime ring, which is at 12:59, and the chiming lasts about 20 seconds, if you do that 13 times, you'll still have another 12 hours of power reserve. And the watch has a certain mechanism that doesn't let you engage the chiming functions with less than 12 hours of power reserve. So essentially, doing the longest chiming cycle, which lasts about 20 seconds, 13 times back to back, will cost you an entire day long power reserve, an entire 24 hours of power reserve. And the beautiful and interesting thing here is that Lange's demonstration of the watch on the website seems to have a real-time minute repeater, which we can engage here. Let's take a look. And you see there's a safety mechanism, right? I will show it again. When the chiming is activated, the minute doesn't jump, or for that matter, the hour doesn't jump until that chiming cycle is finished. So for example, let's play it again with about, let's say, 10 seconds to go, because this is a long enough cycle. As you see, the seconds hand had passed 60, but the minute didn't jump from 52 to 53 until after this was finished. So very nice engineering detail there. Once again, Alan Gonzune. Nine times the low pitched, double for every 10-minute interval, so 5 times of that. And if we do it, 3 more high-pitched minutes for every minute, every additional minute. And as you see, once again, the seconds passed, but this didn't switch to 54. And it will do that right after the sequence is finished. So quite beautiful. Not really everyone's cup of tea, not really in everyone's within everyone's reach, since it is, after all, almost $500,000. This is the Zeitwerk minute repeater. And it really puts into context what we were just looking at in Sartori Billard's R&D project, SB08, that is hopefully going to come out next year, which combines with a similar digital display of jumping hour and jumping minutes, with 1 minute remontoire, which both addresses the problems of power, hunger, and amplitude, but also acts as a switching mechanism for the 3 discs that help display the hour and minutes in the upcoming Sartori BR watch, which combines those jumping hours and minutes with a flying tourbillon. With the price point yet to be determined or announced when it comes to the Sartori BR watch, it's hard to pass a final judgment on it, but on paper, it looks very impressive. If they can provide something like this, at a reasonable price and with a power reserve that gets closer to 2 days or possibly even more, that will be one hell of a deal and an incredible competition for a jump hour watch that is not really tackled in this segment, right? Everyone would love, of course, Vagabondage from FP Jean. Everyone would love to have Zeitwerk from any segment whatsoever, but quite frankly, most collectors can't really even start thinking seriously about watches in those price segments. So it's quite exciting that Sartori Billard approaches it both as relatively affordable and as a fully customizable watch, since, again, the digital display of a jump hour piece provides an incredible canvas for the brand to flex its own aesthetic muscles, and in this case, for you as a collector to exercise to the fullest your own imagination. So I hope that provided you some value for money, my friend Alireza. I really appreciate you. I will take a short break here. I'll both go grab some water as we approach the 1 hour. Please hit the like button. I'll also restart. So when I disappear, please don't fret. But I'm having some connection problems, and I really don't want that to last. So let me just take care of that. Okay, I'm back. Let me get back to Passion for Time. This is an auction coming up on November 6th, part of the fall festivities in Geneva, part of the fall auction cycle, perhaps all the more important now since the only watch was just postponed. That was going to take place on November 5th. Now, Christie's is left with Passion for Time, which is a single owner collection, having belonged to one Mohammed Zaman, an Omani collector, and also another auction that is entitled Rare Watches. And once again, I will post the link. So if you have any questions about any of the watches, I hope you send in some of your questions. Let me actually start with what happens to be on the thumbnail. That's always a safe bet. As you can see, it's a gold Patek Philippe Nautilus with an Omani Khanjaj on the dial at 6 o'clock. This is the original Nautilus Jumbo 3700 in 18 karat gold. Early enough that it has the early bracelets that was actually made by Gefreer. As you guys know, a lot of these big time pieces shared many of the suppliers. Gefreer made the bracelets for the first generation of the Royal Oak Jumbo, the Nautilus Jumbo, and the Vacheron Constantin 222. Not to forget also the fact that they were at the origin of Rolex's most emblematic bracelet designs as well. I'm talking about both the Oyster and the Jubilee. And of course, also that first generation of luxury sports watches, such as the Royal Oak, such as the Patek Philippe Nautilus and the Vacheron Constantin 222, all had as their base that ultra-thin self-winding movement with a full rotor conceived in the late 60s by Gégé Lecoutre. And that movement, the JLC 920, still remains, by the way, the thinnest automatic movement with a full rotor. Of course, much thinner self-winding movements with, for example, micro rotor mechanisms have since been designed that have beaten the JLC 920 to the punch, but none of them with an actual full self-winding rotor. You can see that this example is distinguished with gilt khanjar applied at 6 o'clock to the classic rib design of that black-blue gradient dial. This example is understood to be from around 1973, and it is understood to be only one of the 4 known examples that bear this particular combination, right? Gold Nautilus Jumbo from the original reference that has a khanjar dial. And I should also mention that it's already quite rare to have a yellow gold Nautilus reference 3700. So of course, it's understandably much more rarefied when it happens to bear this type of special symbol, and that quartet is understood to have been a specially designated order produced for the Sultan Qaboos ibn Sa'id himself. This is lot number 2107 for a Patek Philippe Nautilus Jumbo, reference 3700, line 1 in 18 karat gold, with the Omani Khanjar at 6 o'clock, and also with the original early Gefrère gold integrated bracelets. Lot number 2107 has a pre-auction estimate that is set between 600,000 to 1 million in Swiss francs. While we're at it, why not consider the piece that stands next to it with a tropical dial. This is a stainless steel version of what we were just looking at, manufactured in 1978. This is the stainless steel original Jumbo, the Patek Philippe Nautilus reference 3700. And the piece has similarly the Omani coat of arms that consists of the traditional dagger superimposed over 2 crossed swords. This is lot 2106. It is a tropical dial. The piece comes with an extract from the archives, from the Patek archives, that confirms the production of the watch in 1978 and its subsequent sale on July 31st, 1978 as well. Once again, there are only 4 confirmed examples, which makes it all the more desirable considering how the original references of Gérard Genta's 70s designs have appreciated over time. It's not surprising that these more rarefied examples would attract even more special segments of collectors. Lot number 2106, Patek Philippe Nautilus Jumbo, reference 3700, accordingly is expected to realize a final hammer price in the range between 300,000 to 500,000 in Swiss francs. To change things up a little bit, we will look at lots 2104. This is a full gold bluesy, so to speak, from the 4 digits generation, a 1680. You can see with the applied coronets on the nipple dial, which is of course distinguished with these conical indices that are filled with luminous material. Of course, you still have those batons at 6 and 9 and the triangle at 12. But the appearance of those prominent conical shapes that is similar to the nipple gives the dial its nickname. And in the 4-digit generation, whether we are talking about the 1675 for the GMT Master or the 1680 for the Submariner dates, the two-tone and gold versions of these references have similar dials to these. This piece also has a blue sunburst dial, which combines with deep navy blue bezel, which has gained a lot of nice patina. And if we are not seeing the Khanjar this time, the Ommani coat of arms, we're still seeing the Arabic inscription for the name of the Ommani Sultan, Qaboos, and that's at 6 o'clock, quite rare for this dial. Again, not extremely surprising to see this in the collection of Mohammed Zaman, who is an Ommani collector. (1680/8) with the blue dial and a dark blue bezel, which has taken that ghost-like appearance over the years for this piece that comes from early 70s. The piece comes with a service card from 2017. As you guys know, since there was no official Rolex retailer in Amman when many of these wristwatches were first ordered, They were claimed through the United Kingdom, usually through Asprey's on Newbourne Street, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, on a gold watch like this, you can see all the hallmarks as well as English import marks that would align with the origin story of these special watches. Again, I think a gold sub from this time period, from the 4-digit reference, is already quite a beautiful thing. And this one is even more special, even more rare. It is at lot number 2104, and it is expected to fetch somewhere in the range between 120,000 to 240,000 in Swiss francs. Hey, Piruka, how are you, man? How are you, Swiss? Feel free to jump on, huh? The link is there. Maybe we can talk about Sartori Billard a little bit, and you can share with the audience your perspective on the brands, and if you care to also talk about their upcoming Flying Tourbillon jumping hour piece. Speaking again of these 4-digit gold submariners, here's one that is presented without the matching bracelets. This is once again a 1680, with the case seeming relatively well preserved, especially when you look at those hallmarks behind the lugs. A black nipple dial, which has patinated beautifully over the years with the Omani coat of arms emblazoned in red at around 9 o'clock. Once again, an applied coronet right under the triangle at 12 o'clock for this 1680/8. At lots number 2102. A little bit crowded for my liking, to be honest, even as the dial design is quite unique and rare. I like when it replaces, when the Khanjar symbol, when the coat of arms replaces all these lines of writing at 6 o'clock. But of course, this is still quite stunning at lots 2102, with a pre-auction estimate that is set in the range between 80,000 to 120,000 in Swiss francs. Just to give an example of that again, of course, we have just looked at something similar with the Arabic writing, and of course for the Nautilus, but at 2103, You have that same full gold bluesy with a gold khanjar, gilt version of the Omani coat of arms at 6 o'clock. And I think that's at once quite balanced and ornate, quite flashy, but also somehow muted in the way it eliminates and replaces the lines of writing. And this is the case with the blue dial example at lot number 2103 of the Rolex Submariner 1680. Early 70s gold Submariner with the blue dial and navy bezel, and the Omani coat of arms at 6 o'clock. That's lot 2103. That is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere between 120,000 to 240,000 in Swiss francs. We're looking at the Passion for Time auction at Christie's Geneva. This is a live event that is coming up on November 6th as part of the fall auction cycle in Geneva, an event that has perhaps more interest in it now that the Only watch is out of the picture for the time being until next year. And also, it is a single owner collection, so those of us who like to peek in to the coherence of the collections, try to find different kinds of themes, try to understand perhaps the organizing logic behind single owner collections, might find it of particular interest. This is the collection of one gentleman by the name of Mohammed Zaman, someone from Oman, which explains the various pieces with Omani insignia in the collection. But now we are in the presence of something quite different and very unique. You guys might know Harry Winston is today owned by Swatch Group, and the prestigious jewelry house still produces watches, still has a watch collection, although it is not necessarily a priority for the brand these days. However, in the early 2000s, they had perhaps some of the most exciting releases at the annual trade shows, and the Opus series since 2001 were the jewel of their crown, were the centerpiece of their collections, and it was an important effort of Maximilian Büsser, or Max Büsser, which used the prestigious jewelry house as a platform to engage in these collaborations with up-and-coming makers, these emergent, independent makers at the time. And the very first one of the Opus collection, Opus 1, the very first limited run of Opus series was a collaboration with a watchmaker by the name of François-Paul Jean. This was made in 18 units in total. Six tourbillons, six examples of the resonance, and six with the 5-day automatic movements, which was quite an achievement at the time. All were presented in the distinctive case shape of Harry Winston, which appropriates elements of the facades from their New York flagship store. This particular one has a turquoise dial, and apparently the 6 examples all had a different dial. One of them had a gray dial, another a pink dial, silver dial, a blue dial set with diamonds, and a black dial set with diamonds. This is, of course, essentially tourbillon with the remontoir d'égalité, a tourbillon souverain, essentially with remontoir d'égalité, the off-center dial that is given a similar prominence with the tourbillon cage in a kind of balanced vision. A cutout on the dial at the traditional 6 o'clock that gives you a view of the remontoir stop wheel. And balancing that, in the upper half of the dial, you also have a power reserve indicator. Quite a beautiful piece. Opus 1 with a turquoise dial. Essentially, pièce unique version of F.B. Jones chronomètre, F.B. Jones tourbillon souverain with the remontoir d'égalité. Of course, you're looking at the Harry Winston Opus 1. In a way, these projects are also the germination of Max Büsser and friends, so they can be of interest to collectors who are fans of the MBNF brand too. Lot 2018, therefore, the Harry Winston Opus 1, essentially a one-of-a-kind example of a platinum, early platinum tourbillon souverain by F.B. Jean from 2001 with a turquoise dial, has an estimated value of 200 to 400,000 in Swiss francs. The Harry Winston Opus 1 Tourbillon in platinum. Mr. Zaman has two pieces of this collaboration between Harry Winston and François-Paul Jean. Another pièce unique, another one-of-a-kind example. This time, another one with a turquoise dial to mention. This time, however, gem sets, and this time really doubling up as an example, as a pièce unique of an early FP Jaune chronomètre en résonance. Of course, presented once again in the unique Harry Winston styled case. In platinum, diamond set on the dial, both for the sector of the power reserve, as well as the two separate dials, at least in the form of downward-facing crescents for the majority of their hour track. The two separate dials, each of which have their own independent gear train, also have overlapping seconds subdials, which is, of course, where you exactly see the principle of resonance at work. The piece also has diamond setting on the case, the bezel, and the distinctive lugs. A very striking turquoise blue dial with vertical brushing and also kind of a radial groove, a radial guilloche pattern for both the two separate dials as well as the power reserve indicator. And here you see that intricate and nearly symmetrical architecture of an early chronomètre résonance movement. Once again, this is essentially a one-of-a-kind example of an early FP Jaune chronomètre résonance. This is essentially a brass movement chronomètre résonance in a unique platinum case. A pièce unique FP Jaune chronomètre résonance in a gem set Harry Winston case from that early collaboration around year 2001 between Harry Winston and François-Paul Jean, with involvement from Max Büsser as well. This is lot number 2088. The piece is expected to realize a final hammer price between 200,000 to 400,000 in Swiss francs. I've put the link to the auction listings, to the lot listings in the chat. If you would like to, if you would like me to dive deeper into any particular ones, please send in the lot number with a super chat, and I will be more than happy to provide some significant horological detail for you. Speaking of very unique examples of FP Jaune pieces, this is an FP Jaune tourbillon souverain with the remontoir d'égalité and the deadbeat seconds. This is from around 2010. So the piece has the newer pink gold movements, the movements that is largely fashioned from 18 karat pink gold in terms of its main plates and bridge plates. A 40 millimeter platinum case that is set on the bezel and the lugs with baguette diamonds and with pavé diamonds on the background of the dial. The glimpse you get at the remontoir, at that early Opus 1, is here replaced with a small subdial for seconds, which is actually operated by that 1 second remontoir, which allows those ticking seconds, those deadbeat seconds. Once again, the tourbillon cage is given the same prominence as the off-center dial for hours and minutes, and at the top of the dial, at the traditional 12 o'clock, there's also a power reserve indicator. As you can see, the case is entirely set with diamonds, including the 2 flanks. A very precious example of the tourbillon souverain from around 2010 with a platinum case at lot 2089 with the estimated value within the range between 400,000 to 800,000 Swiss francs. At lot 2094, we have one of my favorite chronograph designs, and certainly one of my favorite FP Journe watches, long discontinued, and even more intensely unavailable than some of the most desirable models that are still in production. This is the flyback chronograph that was made by FP Journe for, I think, about 3 years, maybe 4, around 05 and 08 or 04 and 08. It's a model called the Octa chronograph, a piece that has many design elements that kind of harken back to pocket chronographs of the yesteryear, with an off-center dial, with overlapping continuous seconds, and with a separate centrally deployed seconds hand that traverses the entire dial. A big date indicator, the oversized date indicator, that's roughly at around 11 o'clock on the primary white gold backdrop, and a 60 minutes totalizer that is an additional oversized subsidiary dial attached or juxtaposed to the main one at 9 o'clock. This is an example in 18 karat pink gold in a 38 millimeter case. One of the only 135 made with a brass movement, as you can see. The base plate and the bridge plates are fashioned out of brass and rhodium plated. And of course, there's an oscillating weight, an off-center self-winding rotor in 22 carats, full gold with its own barleycorn decoration. The Octa chronograph is a very classical piece of design that also appropriates within it a flyback functionality, a flyback mechanism. This particular piece was apparently manufactured in 2004. At least that's the certificate of warranty and its date. There's also a later certificate of authenticity from 2020, and lot 2094 is also accompanied by the product literature as well as a presentation box and its outer packaging. A very cool piece of design that unfortunately didn't last too long in FP Journe's catalog. And as you know, the man is pretty insistent on not going back to models or designs that he discontinued. So the chronograph has been represented in the Jaune catalog by Centigraph since 2008. This is lot number 2094, an early example of the pink gold octa chronograph with the brass movement and flyback functionality, and an estimated value between 150,000 and 300,000 Swiss francs. Okay, we're stuttering again in terms of the connection. So let's see if, finally. Just to spice things up a little bit, let's look at lot 2096. This is the Philippe Dufort Grande et Petite Sonnerie number 1. It's an incredible watch from one of the masters of independent watchmaking. And a piece that was sold by Philips in 2021 for 4.7 million Swiss francs. Dufort, I believe, only made 8 of these pieces, and more recently, the platform that combines editorials and lifestyle presentation with the selling of luxury watches, A Collected Men, sold one example at around 7.6 million US dollars, again in 2021. It turns out that Mohammed Zaman was the person who bought the example at Philips that sold for 4.7 million Swiss francs. So you are now looking at lot 2096, which is precisely that piece. Of course, that 4.7 million Swiss francs is the record for an independent maker to sell at public auction. The Grande et Petite Sonnerie, the chiming watch, was the first one to be made under the Philippe Dufort name, and this happens to be number 1 as well. The slide at 2 o'clock is part of its setting to either silence or strike, whereas the slide at 4 o'clock changes between Grande or Petite Sonnerie. The Grande Sonnerie mode strikes for every hour and every quarter, whereas the petite sonnerie strikes hours and quarters only on the hour and the quarters at the quarter hour. Of course, the winding crown integrates a button which you can press to activate the minute repeater at will, as you can see, at which point this chiming watch functions like quote unquote every other minute repeater, or like a regular minute repeater, where it sounds out the last hour, the quarter, as well as the individual minutes that have elapsed since that last quarter. This is an example in 41 millimeters in 18 karat yellow gold, a white enamel dial with blued Breguet style hands for hour and minutes, so elegantly twisted at the tip of the minute hand to compensate for the curvature of the design of the watch. There's also a subtly sunk, subtly recessed subsidiary dial for seconds at 6 o'clock. Very, very beautiful indeed. Once again, the pusher at 2 o'clock essentially acts like an on and off switch. The slide at 4 o'clock switches between grande sonnerie and petite sonnerie. Grande sonnerie sounds out the hours and quarters both at the hour and at each quarters, whereas petite sonnerie strikes the hours each hour and the quarters at each quarter. Here is the hinged case back, which gives you best of both worlds. You can both peek into the movements if you so wish and take in the striking of the hammers, or you can close it and get the best resonance of the chiming functions of the watch. Very beautiful piece. Number one, completed in 1992. Last sold about 2 years ago by Philips for 4.7 million Swiss francs. The estimates this time around at Christie's Geneva for the Passion for Time auction is set between 4 million to 6 million Swiss francs. Let's vary this stuff a little bit. I have looked at most of the pieces among the first few dozens. So I've looked at a lot of the Rolex, AP, and Patek Philippe pieces, but the more complicated Patek stuff I didn't really have time just yet last time around, so let's continue with this 2060, which is 3970 EP, the platinum perpetual calendar chronograph with the waterproof case, screw down, black dial that is diamond set at the factory. Take a look at this dial while I grab a cup of water. In the meantime, please hit the like button if you haven't already. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We're looking at the Passion for Time auction that is coming up at Christie's Geneva on November 6th. A single collector auction focusing on pieces from one Omani gentleman, Mohammed Zaman's selection. This is a Patek Philippe perpetual calendar in platinum, 36 millimeters, 3970 EP, powered by a movement based on the Nouvelle Le Mania CH27 Bosch that you can see here. The Patek Philippe signature elements everywhere visible, none more so than the steel polished cap and black polished steel cap and oversized screw on the column wheel. This piece comes with the additional platinum solid case back if you need that extra heft on your wrist and don't necessarily care about looking at the movements every so often. The lot also is accompanied by an archival extract which confirms the production and sale of this watch in 1993. The presentation box and outer packaging is there, so is the setting pin, and the platinum case is actually matched with an 18 karat white gold Patek Philippe Déployant clasp. The black dial is quite stunning, and relatively subtle in its decoration, considering that it has a baguette cut diamond at 12 o'clock and brilliant cut indices for the rest of the hour markers. A beautiful case with stepped lugs, as you can see from this profile picture. A stunning neo-vintage example of a Patek Philippe perpetual calendar chronograph in platinum that at lot 2060 is expected to fetch an amount somewhere in the range between 80,000 to 120,000 in Swiss francs. Back to back, there are quite beautiful examples of the 5004. This is basically the split second example of that same generation. The same generation of perpetual calendar chronograph with, let's say, added split second functionality, which can be engaged with that extra pusher that is integrated to the oversized crown. This is lot 2061, which is a 5004P with a silvered opaline white dial, Arabic numerals. There are two wickets at 12 o'clock for the day of the week and the month. A pointer date in circles, an opening for the moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, you have a 30-minute totalizer in a subtly recessed subdial, in which a leap year indicator is ensconced, and the continuous running seconds at 9 o'clock also encircles the day-night indicator, which consists in a micro hand that acts as a 24-hour hand as well. And of course, both of the chronograph seconds hands are centrally deployed. As you can see, this is an example that basically comes with the full suite of its accessories. The case is matched with a platinum déployant clasp. The piece comes with a certificate of origin. The supplemental platinum case back for that additional heft, setting pin, sales tag, leather folder, product literature, slip case, as well as a presentation box and outer packaging. The 5004 is a rare enough bird with approximately 300 pieces made in platinum, maybe made to the tune of about once a month or 12 examples per year during its production run. which lasted for about 16 years. This is lot number 2061 for a 5004 P with a silver dial, Patek Philippe perpetual calendar split seconds chronograph at lot 2061 with a pre-auction estimate between 200,000 to 400,000 Swiss francs. $2062 is a 5004. This time in yellow gold, and this time with details that make it even more niche. This is actually a piece that is a bespoke commission by Michael Ovitz, who was the president of Walt Disney in mid-90s. Quite an important and interesting Hollywood figure during the 80s and 90s. And this piece is distinguished by the combination of the yellow gold case with a single Roman numeral at 12, which is combined with polished yellow gold beads for the rest of the hour markers, combined also with luminous pips and the MSO monogram at 6 o'clock, which are, of course, his initials, Michael Stephen Ovitz, at 6 o'clock. A very unique piece, a rare bird that was a bespoke commission of one of the most important figures in Hollywood for a good part of 80s and 90s, someone who served as the president of Walt Disney in the mid-90s. It's also quite rare to have a tachymeter scale on a 5004 dial. Most of such pieces are, of course, bespoke commissions, as is the case here. And the black and gold already combines beautifully at any rate. I love how this piece combines both sporty and dressy elements and ultimately comes up with a very unique package for this 5004 J that was a bespoke commission by Michael Ovitz. From around year 2011. This particular piece does come with practically the full suit of its accessories, which includes the additional 18 karat yellow gold solid case back, setting pin, the pamphlets, the leather portfolio to hold the documents, the certificate of origin mainly, which is also included, the presentation box, and the outer packaging, not to mention the matching Patek Philippe déployant clasp in 18 karat yellow gold. Lot number 2062, which is the Michael Ovitz Patek Philippe perpetual calendar split seconds chronograph 5004J with the black dial, is expected to fetch an amount within the range between 400,000 to 800,000 in Swiss francs. There's a very interesting pocket watch with an open worked dial and movements, as well as engraved bridges. Very interesting piece. A Patek Philippe reference 912. Manufactured in 1980. This is a 49 millimeter in diameter yellow gold pocket watch that is gem set with diamonds, rubies, and pearls. It is accompanied by an extract from the archives that confirms the existence of 177 diamonds amounting to 1.71 carats, 12 rubies, 0.15 carats, and pearls. The piece was manufactured in 1980 and sold in December 1980, and almost matching with the rubies that serve as our markers, not to mention the ruby cabochon that tops off the crown. The piece also has red hands, which are quite unique and rare. A lot of these open-worked dials, of course, come up with unique and discreet ways of presenting their brands, displaying their signature, so to speak. Here, it is in the form of a cap on the mainspring barrel at around 2 o'clock, which is a Calatrava cross, of course, the symbol of the brand. The open-worked movements and bridges, of course, also have hand-engraved details. The case band of the pocket watch is set with pearls. The bezel is similarly hand-engraved. And the hour track is set with brilliant cut diamonds, with the rubies serving as hour markers. Very interesting and beautiful pocket watch. Here's a look at the movements from the back. This is a very unique example of a Patek reference 912 pocket watch set with rubies, diamonds, and pearls, with an open worked dial and red hands. At lot number 2063, the piece has an estimated value set between 100,000 to 200,000 in Swiss francs. We're looking once again at a yellow gold example of the original Patek Philippe Nautilus Jumbo. This one once retailed and co-signed on the dial at 6 o'clock by Gubelin, which is a family-owned traditional retailer that is located in Lucerne, Switzerland. Again, as I mentioned, the yellow gold examples of the original Nautilus Jumbo reference 3700 are quite rare to begin with. About 300 examples or so have appeared in public so far. This particular piece is from around 1985, and lot 2064 is accompanied by a certificate of origin that shows that. The piece is engraved on the case back, saying any time. And it has an estimated value between 150,000 to 300,000 in Swiss francs. Once again, we are looking at the Passion for Time auction that is coming up at Christie's Geneva on November 6th. If you want me to pay particular attention to any watches that I didn't cover, that I may have skipped over, or that I have perhaps covered earlier that you want me to pay particular attention again, please feel free to send in the lot number with a super chat. We are right now looking at, and you can of course send any other watch related questions in with a super chat as well. We're looking at that classic Tasti Tondi Patek Philippe chronograph, one of the most influential and aspirational vintage chronographs, a hand-wound piece, it is distinguished by those round pushers, the tasti tondi, that give the model its nickname. Here, those round pushers also have a conical top that has a guilloche decoration for that additional grip that you can see a little better here from this picture. Here, the pink gold case is actually matched with an 18 karat yellow gold Gefrère bracelet. The lot is also accompanied with an archival extract that confirms the manufacture of the watch in 1968 and its subsequent sale in July 1969. It is believed that approximately 400 examples of the 1463 were made in yellow gold. Unlike the 130, which, especially in precious metal, is quite an acquired taste, thanks to its diminutive case size, the Tasti Tondi has a more wearable size, especially for a dress chronograph, right around 35 millimeters. Here it is in a beautiful example with pencil hands, obus-shaped applied indices, a tachymeter on the periphery of the dial, heat-blued stainless steel hands, both for the centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand and the indicator in the 30-minute totalizer, which is at 3 o'clock. There is an additional continuous seconds dial at 9 o'clock. Both of these subdials, both of those registers, are perfectly aligned and proportioned in relation to the crown, which sits relatively flush with the case at 3 o'clock. A beautiful classic chronograph in a relatively well-preserved example with an 18 karat yellow gold case that is here matched with an 18 karat gold Gefrère bracelet. This is lot 2066 with a pre-auction estimate set in the range between 80,000 to 160,000 in Swiss francs. I have about 35 minutes tonight. I know I started late, but I think I will still end at around midnight. So just to give you a heads up, I was just speaking of the reference 130 and 1463. This is 1436, which you might say is essentially a split seconds version of the 130. This is a pink on pink example 2 in the way that it combines a pink dial with a pink gold case. That this watch has been born with the pink dial is confirmed by an archival extract that accompanies it. There are only 9 publicly known examples, apparently, of 1436 with a pink gold case. And this particular example also has a pink dial, which is probably around 4, the case with around 4 of those 9 watches. You can see how well preserved the case is from the crispness of the hallmarks that are photographed here. You can get a glimpse at the split seconds chronograph movements from this particular picture with the case back removed. And of course, the pink dial is one of the best parts of the watch. Again, largely well preserved with all the registers and scales in engraved hard enamel with the pre-1948 long Patek Philippe et Compagnie Genève signature, which has both the accent on Genève and the comma between Patek and Philippe, I should say, I guess. This is really a rare example of a stunning complication by Patek Philippe from 1940. It is the reference 1436, a split seconds chronograph in a pink gold case and with a pink dial, a quite desirable combination in the world of vintage watches. And accordingly, the piece is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere within the range between 300,000 to 500,000 Swiss francs. We're looking at a classic Patek Philippe World Time, the first version, the first wristwatch version, I should say, of Louis Cotier's World Time mechanism for Patek Philippe, with the outer rotational bezel that would later be integrated to the dial of the watches as a cities ring. The unique diminutive and distinct case design with the teardrop lugs, 31 millimeters in diameter. So it's quite small by modern standards, but a very elegant and distinctive design that jumps out due to its singularity. There's still, of course, a 24-hour ring, bicolor to distinguish day from night. That is part of the dial that surrounds the center of the dial, and that observatory style hand, which later on, of course, would be used to full advantage to get a nice view of those beautiful cloisonné enamel and also guilloché center dials. Again, a well-preserved case, which you can tell both from the legibility of the hallmarks, but also from the crispness of the coin edging on the rotational bezel for the cities. This is the 1415 HU, 31 millimeters in yellow gold with the distinctive cities bezel, rotational, and teardrop lugs from around 1946 at lot 2068 with a pre-auction estimate set in the range between 150 to 250,000 Swiss francs. The next piece, which is understood to be one of only two known examples of a world time version of a reference 96, which is a classic Calatrava reference. This is a watch that was previously held in the private collection of Jean-Claude Biver. The archival extract mentions that the movement was made in 1913, completed and encased in 1937, and subsequently sold in September 1937. It was first sold in public auction at Sotheby's, New York in 2011. And I think it was then bought by Jean-Claude Biver and sold by him in 2020 at Phillips Geneva in June as lot 64. Here it's coming up on auction again. 29 cities written in French on the cities ring, heavily burnished, patinated, tropical, or you might even say damaged dial, but a very unique example of a watch. Again, one of the only two world time watches in that reference 96 case, essentially a 96J HU in yellow gold with the world time movement, heure universelle. Relatively well preserved. Again, one of the only two publicly known examples of a reference 96 with a world time complication. The piece is therefore expected to realize a final hammer price in the range between 250 to 450,000 in Swiss francs. Before we get into a number of interesting Rolex day dates, which are another strength of this collection, and perhaps also an exquisite selection of Royal Oak perpetual calendars by Audemars Piguet. Perhaps we can talk about about half a dozen selection of Lange pieces for the rest of tonight's live stream. I'll be back on Thursday after presenting maybe half a dozen more watches for you tonight. I think that's reasonable. And we'll catch up on Thursday. Please hit the like button. I think I'll be back with you with other sorts of content, of course, on the channel, on Instagram. Until then, in the meantime, you're looking at lot 2070 from the Passion for Time auction, November 6th. This is the Alain Gonzone Richard Lange Tourbillon pour le Mérite from around 2014. This piece has a fusée and chain constant force mechanism, a regulator style dial, and a tourbillon, which it displays in its unique fashion. In the style of the regulator dial layout, the minute hand is given a particular prominence with the larger size dial that is right around 12 o'clock, framed by an imaginary upward-facing crescent, so to speak. Overlapping with it in the lower half of the dial, there is a dial with Roman numerals, which is reserved for the hour hand, and overlapping with that still, there is the semi-open worked tourbillon cage with a seconds hand pivoting on it. And this is a look at the Richard Lange Tourbillon pour le Mérite. The traditional three-quarter plates in German silver is exquisitely open worked to expose the gear train of this movement. Very beautiful patina on that peculiar alloy of nickel, copper, and zinc. The hues of champagne are unmistakable. As you can see, through that open worked 3/4 plates. You can see the fusée and chain mechanism that drives the gear train. And the piece is also fitted with Lange's patented stop seconds mechanism. So the movements, the seconds are hacked whenever the crown is pulled out for a more precise setting of time. This is lot number 2017. A. Lange und Söhne, Richard Lange, Tourbillon pour le Mérite. With the fusée and chain constant force mechanism, the patented stop seconds, the regulator dial layout that is inspired by the Saxonian pocket watches of the 18th century. The piece is expected to fetch an amount in the range between 60,000 to 100,000 in Swiss francs. We were just talking about digital display of hours and minutes in Zeitwerk and beyond. We were particularly talking about the Zeitwerk minute repeater, which was released in a limited run of 30 pieces in honey gold by A. Lange und Söhne, announced just earlier today. This is an A. Lange und Söhne striking time, Zeitwerk, the analog watch with the digital display, with its unique presence that includes a 44.2 millimeter platinum case that, through the cutouts, displays the chiming mechanism, displays the hammers for its striking mechanism. One of the beautiful things about this digital display also is the fact that it always advances instantaneously. And that, of course, is owed to the 60 seconds remontoire mechanism that you can see behind, and that is hand finished, and that allows a steady flow of power to the balance. Unlike the decimal minute repeater we were just looking at, the striking time here is a more traditional minute repeater mechanism. since it chimes for the hours and quarters. Still a very beautiful and elegant watch. With a 36-hour power reserve. This piece is matched with an 18-karat white gold Alangonzune buckle. The guarantee and service papers dated to 2017. Some product literature, a leather folder to hold the documents, and a presentation box and outer packaging. That was lot 2071 for this Alangonzune Zeitwerk striking time in platinum, with an estimated value between 60,000 to 120,000 in Swiss francs. Lot 2072 is an Alangonzune datograph from 2021. This is a reference 405031, the so-called datograph up and down, with the enlarged 41 millimeter case that is also thicker than the original datograph. The dial layout has an additional power reserve indicator at 6 o'clock, and the Roman numerals, the 3 Roman numerals that formed part of the hour markers, have been eliminated to make way to an abbreviated design of baton markers. A reverse panda aesthetic, so to speak, with the 2 chronograph registers at 4 and 8 o'clock. A kind of silvered opaline white against the black backgrounds. The characteristic visual elements of the datograph, the oversized date of Lange, really overall, of the oversized date at 12 o'clock. Of course, it's an open secret that was a module gifted to Alangonzune by their sister brand, Jaeger-LeCoultre. But with the storytelling, with the narrative that binds such digital displays to their origin story, to the 5 minutes stage clock at the Dresden Opera House that was initially designed, conceived, and realized by the brand's ancestors, Lange has very much made that oversized date indicator its own. Of course, it is also matched in most iterations with an additional pusher at around 10 o'clock that allows for the quick correction of that date. Here, that pusher in combination with the start-stop pusher of the chronograph gives the watch a very unique bull's head kind of look. Before the introduction of the Odysseus, the datograph was the closest thing, perhaps, that Alan Gonzune had to a sports watch, and that is very much in view here. And of course, the datograph is a flyback chronograph that which allows for the measurement of subsequent intervals in quick succession, since you can reset the chronograph with a single push of the button, the single push of the reset button, which sets back the seconds hand and the minute totalizer to 0 and immediately keeps it running to somehow supplement that quasi-sporty ethos of the datograph. Of course, unlike the 1815 chrono, you have a tachymeter scale that is inscribed on the perimeter of the dial. I very much prefer the first generation of these pieces that are much more compact and slightly more subdued and classical in their design. But of course, the 41, the oversized version, is already a classic in its own rights. And this is as good of an example as any at lots 2072, which of course is presented with the full suite of its accessories. Alan Gonzune, datograph up and down, the flyback chronograph in pink gold with oversized dates, and with a pre-auction estimate that is set in the range between 40,000 to 60,000 Swiss francs. Hi, Chris. It bears repeating, guys. 2024, it is the 30th anniversary of Alan Gonzune, which they are bound to celebrate with some special releases. I expect a 30th anniversary Lange 1. And as it happens, 2024 is, of course, also the 25th anniversary of the datograph. So there's going to be a very special edition of the datograph as well next year. I wonder how the sequence of those releases will be. Will we get the new Lange 1 for the Watches and Wonders and wait for the 25th anniversary datograph? Or will we get the datograph in Watches and Wonders and wait for October for the 30th anniversary pieces? Maybe we'll get one or both of them in the summer. Who knows? October 24th, as you know, is kind of the legendary revival of the brand, right? When the quartet was released, with the oversized dates indicating 25, of course, since those pictures from the gala were to be printed on the next day, and Günther Blümlein couldn't bear seeing the wrong dates on those publications. This is long before social media, of course, but it bears repeating. Something very exciting. And I believe at least 2 interesting anniversary models are in the pipeline for Arangonzone for the celebratory moods of 2024 for the brand. Please hit the like button. I have 2 more pieces that I want to share with you from the Passion for Time auction. 2 more Lange watches. This is the double splits. As you guys know, Lange always does the more difficult, does the more unusual first. The double splits came out first, followed by the triple splits, and it was later that they added the 1815 Rattrapante, which was kind of the solo splits, first in honey gold, then in platinum. So in a way, the double splits that you're seeing here is the ancestor of those models. The double splits flyback chronograph in the 43 millimeter platinum case with the black dial in that distinctive reverse panda look we were just talking about. The ingenious use of the script, of course, always part of Lange's understated and elegant design. The tachymeter on the perimeter is complemented by the signature of the brand that wraps around 12 o'clock. You have the 4 Roman numerals at 12, 2, 6, and 10 o'clock. A power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock in terms of an up and down sector scale, up und auf. Double split, of course, means that you have, in addition to 2 chronograph hands that would allow you to time 2 distinct intervals in terms of the specific seconds reading, is complemented here by an additional hand, an additional gilt hand in the 30-minute totalizer as well, which allows you to add to that also a specific minute reading as well. That is the meaning of double splits. Here, the bull's head configuration is also quite apparent with the additional pusher at 10 o'clock. That is the split seconds mechanism. And here is that stunning movement with the 2 separate column wheels. An entire lexicon of finishing techniques, so to speak. With the glashütte ribbing, the perlage, the anglage, the circular and vertical graining, so to speak, between the stripes and the decoration of the base plates, the heat-blued screws, the freehand engraved elements, the rubies that are countersunk into gold chaton, and chronograph bridges executed in German silver. Beautiful architecture for this double splits chronograph, of course, with the flyback functionality. The Lange double split was released in 2004, followed by the triple splits in 2018. And then finally, the 1815 Rattrapante, the solo splits, so to speak, that was first released in honey gold, I believe in 2020, and followed up by the platinum version last year in 2022. This is an example of the double split from 2008. Alang und Söhne, platinum, double splits, flyback chronograph with an estimated value between 40,000 to 80,000. Chris, I'm a first-gen datograph guy. I find the dimensions much more appropriate to my wimpy wrist. That's part of the configuration. Joking aside, I do mean it quite seriously. I think the proportions are just amazing, but I also love the oversized dates. I love that those three Roman numerals that are perfectly placed in the form of a triangle. I don't want to be extremely picky, but if I were to get one, I would probably want the platinum one. Philippe Dufort always kind of jokes about it to say that he got the pink gold version because he just couldn't afford the platinum. So hopefully one day I'll be lucky enough, but this is what I would want to have. I think over a 5070p, which admittedly has a very stunning blue dial, but still, I think this is something quite different for me. And there's something quite magical about how the German silver elements of the movement take on this unique patina over the years, right? With that yellowish hue, that champagne-like tint becoming more and more apparent as time passes. And I find that to be a very unique element that pleases the vintage enthusiast within me. So I'm very much a datograph guy, and thank you for asking the question. So before closing, unless someone squeezes in a last-minute question or request in the form of a super chat, is this very last Lange, this very last watch from Christie's Geneva November 6th event, Passion for Time, a single collector-focused auction, sharing pieces from the collection of one Mohammed Zaman an Armani collector, one of the most prominent contemporary collections going on sale as part of the fall season in Geneva. This is lot 2074, and it is the triple splits we were talking about just a moment ago. It was a limited edition of 100 watches released in 2018. Triple split means you have split seconds, split minutes, and split hours, basically, which means you can get a reading of all these units for two distinct intervals. So this is a triple register chronograph where the additional 12-hour counter is at 12 o'clock is balanced out by the power reserve indicator at 6 o'clock. You have an anthracite gray dial that serves as a background, as a backdrop to the silvered opaline white chronograph registers that are placed at 4 and 8 o'clock according to Erlang Zune's house style that harkens back to Saxonian pocket watches. The signature of the brand is on the Reho at around 12 o'clock, and the tachymeter scale is inscribed on that sloping flange as well. Baton markers, classic alpha styled Lange hands for the hour and minutes that are inlaid with luminous material, and that additional pusher at around 10 o'clock it activates the split chronograph mechanism. Of course, this is very intricate movements. Very unique as well within the horological world. No one else does it. This is, again, one of only 100 pieces, number 47 specifically here, encased in a platinum 43 millimeter diameter case, matched with an 18 carats white gold déployant clasp, which irritates the fike out of me. Platinum watch deserves a platinum buckle or déployant clasp. I don't see any reason not to do that, not to match it accordingly. I hope that was just the preference of this particular collector, because I find it very unbecoming of prestige brands like this to make excuses not to match platinum with platinum. Of course, they have all sorts of stories about how it's hard to machine a déployant clasp in platinum, as if it has never been done. But let's not bicker endlessly about something so seemingly minuscule, and admire this one of 100 triple splits chronograph, which is one of the reasons why Lange is very much recognized as a specialist in chronographs since the release of the datograph, since the release of their first in-house movements, L951, one in-house chronograph movements in 1999 with flyback functionality, which was followed up by the double splits in 2004, followed up by triple splits in 2018, Rattrapons in 2020, and then finally last year with their first self-winding chronograph for the Odysseus series. This is lot 2017 for the Alangonzune. Oh, sorry, my bad. See, I knew I needed to end since my attention is wavering. This is, of course, a white gold piece, so it makes absolute sense that it is matched with a white gold déployant clasp. I apologize for the brain fart there because there were some examples that were platinum cases matched with white golds in this particular selection, but I apologize for my mistake. This is one of 100 pieces of Alangonzune's world first and so far only triple splits chronograph with the flyback functionality. The piece has a tachymeter scale that is inscribed on the rejo and a power reserve indicator at 6 o'clock. Beautiful anthracite gray dial with silvered chronograph registers. Stunning 43 millimeter white gold case. The piece is expected to finalize a hammer price somewhere in the range between 80,000 to 120,000 in Swiss francs. Thank you, everybody. Please hit the like button before you sign off. I am incredibly thankful for your presence and support in the chats. Thank you, Ali Raza, for your super sticker for $75 that you posted as a comment in my previous live stream, which helped me open this show and talk about the new Sartori Billard jump hour and digital display piece with the flying tourbillon that is coming out next year. We talked about the new Zeitwerk minute repeater that was released as a limited edition of 30 pieces in their proprietary honey golds. And then we continued our discussion of the Passion for Time single collector auction that is coming up at Christie's Geneva on November 6th. Stay tuned. I'll be back with some further contents later today. It's already Wednesday here in Southern California. I'll continue pumping out some content on Instagram and YouTube as well in the form of some market reviews as well as shorts. So stay tuned for those. I'll be back with a live stream finishing up the Christie's Geneva auctions on Thursday. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. St. Peter, thank you for your super chat as well. Wear your watches and enjoy them. I'll see you in the next one. Feel free to leave a comment. If you have just come across this channel, do subscribe. I'm here with a live stream more or less on a daily basis, as you guys know, and with lots of other content. Check it out. We also have a lot of giveaways, another 2 giveaways coming up for the months of November and December. But most importantly, we are building a community around here that is solely focused on the passion for and knowledge of wristwatches. So stay tuned as the channel and the community is growing. Hit the like button, explore the other content, and leave all sorts of comments so we get pushed forward on the algorithm a little bit. I really appreciate you. Take care.